We finally got to our last speaker, John Bond. John Bond is the chair of the Australian Doctors for Africa. John is one of the founders of Primewest, a national property investment business. His background spans law, investment banking, as well as property investment and development. He holds board and equity positions in a range of companies in diverse sectors, including Lexus of Perth, Energy Tech, and CoVision. He was the founding chairman of the Fathering Project, a non-for-profit organization focusing on the importance of a father figure in children's lives. He was previously a board member of the Art Gallery of Western Australia Foundation and the Matu Charitable Trust. John has been a supporter of and passionate about the ADFA since visiting Ethiopia and with Graham Ford and witnessing firsthand the tremendous impact it has on the lives of local people. And he has been chair of the board since February 2016. Please help me join in welcoming John to the stage.
Well, I'd like to thank the organisers for giving us the opportunity to explain a little bit about what Australian Doctors for Africa does. And I will keep it short because you've been very patient and it is Friday afternoon. So, forget this. What is Australian Doctors for Africa? It's a voluntary NGO founded in 2005, and it provides a link between Australian philanthropy and African medical need. Importantly, it's a pathway for ESG requirements of Australian companies. And it's interesting to note that last night at the Australian Africa Minerals and Energy Group, we were awarded winner in the ESG section for Africa, and we're very appreciative of that. We're a fully tax-deductible charity, but we're very tiny by comparison to some of the major charities that you might know. I think we do punch well above our weight. Apart from 3 part-time staff in Perth and a couple of staff in Madagascar and Ethiopia, we're entirely voluntary. So where we go is East Africa, primarily Madagascar and Ethiopia and Somaliland, and to a lesser extent, we're just building up in Zimbabwe, and we have operations, or have had an operation in Comoros and South Sudan. I'd particularly like to thank a couple of our supporters in Madagascar. Base Toliara and Black Earth have both provided assistance to us to carry out our activities in Madagascar, and that's very much appreciated. And we're hopeful that we can get some more Australian companies working in Africa to support what we do. So what we do is basically train and equip doctors, nurses and hospitals to be more self-sufficient. So medical training and assistance, medical equipment and supplies, infrastructure projects, and advanced development like Clubfoot. As I mentioned, we're a very small charity. We have an annual cash budget of around $1 million. We need to raise that every year from private donations and corporates, and that's not always easy because we're not a high-profile charity, and East Africa is not so well known in Australia. The specialty areas listed there that we operate in, and the way it operates is that there is a specialist in each of those areas who dedicates their time to put a team together to visit the countries that we operate in and provide training, teaching, and also operating in those countries and in those disciplines. This is just an example of a team. So when a medical team goes to a country, it can be between 10 and 15 people. We do, as I mentioned, we're a very small charity. We rely a lot on donations. Emirates Foundation helps us with transport, and these teams might take a couple of 100 kilos of medical equipment with them. They'll go and operate and consult and teach and train for 2 weeks. Very hard work out of their holiday time, and then support those people when they return to Australia. This is a picture of our founder, Dr. Graham Ford. He's a dynamo, those of you who know him. He's been operating in Africa for a long time and has established incredible contacts with a whole range of hospitals and ministries. He's shaking hands there with Haile Gebrselassie, who you may know won a couple of Olympic medals and 4 world titles in middle distance running, and he's our patron in Ethiopia and been a great supporter for us. So we provide equipment is one of the activities we do. It's either donated in Australia or we buy it very cheaply in India. And as an example, if we buy $10,000 worth of implants, we can provide 100 life-saving orthopaedic operations. And the difference, I think, just to mention, orthopaedics in Africa and here are entirely different things. It's often discretionary here. It's often so important to life sustenance in Africa. If you have a broken leg, it's a very significant consequence to not only the person, but a whole family in terms of being able to live and survive. We also provide equipment that supports the surgeons that we train, so they can apply their skills once we've taught them, and again, we support them along the road. And also, we send a lot of medical equipment from Australia. We've got very good relations with hospitals and medical facilities here, so we've sent an enormous amount of equipment. We do it on a needs basis to the hospitals that we support in Africa, and it is good equipment. It's just outdated by our standards, but has a lot of life left in it, and it's very well appreciated. So in hospitals, before we go into a hospital, we get a memorandum of understanding with the hospital and also the local Ministry of Health. We only go where we're invited and where we find a connection with people who can carry on the work that we want to do. So as an example, just here is what we can do on a very small budget. I went to Bahadar, which is in northern Ethiopia, a couple of years ago. We opened the operating theatre on the right from what was the room on the left, and it just makes a tremendous difference. It's really appreciated. It gives the specialists there the opportunity to really do the work that they're trained to do. And that sort of operation cost us about $75,000. We can do it extremely cheaply. It would probably be 10 times that in Australia. So we get a lot of bang for our buck in this charity. I'll mention specifically the Clubfoot program, which we run in Madagascar and Somaliland. Clubfoot occurs in about 1 in 1,000 babies. It's not endemic to Africa, it happens everywhere. It's just that in places like Australia, it's sorted out at birth. In these places, it's often not found at birth. Birth often isn't in a hospital to start with. And so we can come in and correct clubfoot at a young age. It's a simple procedure with plaster of Paris. It's very effective. And again, the outcome for a person in Africa compared to here is significant, because it could mean the difference between being able to earn a living and not. A newer area for us, and one that I'm very excited about, is scholarships. So in Somaliland, there were no specialist training since 1991, which is really hard to believe. So we've set up a program where we support doctors to become specialists in various disciplines. They go and train in Ethiopia at the Black Lion Hospital. And so the outcomes are, again, fantastic. It costs us about $7,000 a year over 4 years to train a specialist who then goes back to their country and then can carry on work within the hospital system there. So far, we've graduated 14 surgeons and we have 3 fellowships, and we have about 28 in the current scholarship program who are going through the system. So it's very significant when you think that they can go back and have a life of perhaps 40 years in the hospital system in their country, and the number of procedures that they can do over that time. Our current activities, we resumed volunteer team travel last year. One of the major activities, and perhaps the major activity in our history, is building an endoscopy treatment and training facility in Madagascar. It's very much needed. It's a very big project for us, in the order of $500,000. So we're fundraising for that at the moment. But again, it's one of those areas. Madagascar has an unusual need for this, and I think it's something where we can make a huge difference. The Ida Hospital in Tigray in Ethiopia, you probably all know about the troubles in northern Ethiopia. So we're providing Indian orthopaedic implants. We've sent a sea container of medical equipment and supplies. We've done a 4-week fellowship in limb reconstruction, which is sad to say. And we've provided 2 new staff, or supported 2 new staff for orthopaedic and prosthetics. So the war injuries there are significant, and again, there's not much in the way of support. We're also training orthopaedics and infection control. That's a very big area, infection control, and the nurses, the volunteer nurses who go with our medical teams, spend a lot of time training nurses in these countries, and really simple procedures can make a very substantial difference to the outcome of operations. We provide orthopaedic plates and screws for 6 Ethiopian hospitals, and we are currently renovating an orthopaedic ward and ablution facilities in Gondar. So these are very distant, far-flung places. They have great needs, and we go some way towards satisfying those needs. Finally, I'd like to just mention that we'd love you to all consider donating, whether in large or small amounts. We'd love you to be a supporter of our organisation, which you can see on the website. You can become a supporter and friend of Australian Doctors for Africa. And I must say, of all the charities that I've been involved in over 30 years, this is by far the most cost-effective charity that I've ever been involved with. Graham's ability to extract voluntary donations and time from doctors, nurses, airlines, and everybody else is quite extraordinary. So a donation to this charity really does go a long way. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.